is no other but the beautiful Mary Edoro, the Chief of Staff and Head of Strategy, Bella Naija. Please give her a round of applause as she comes on stage.
I believe a lot in pushing for women empowerment, but I don't believe in pushing women to act like men. So while we're saying, oh, a woman can do it all, it doesn't mean you have to be hard on her. It doesn't mean you have to push her or make her feel like she's not unique in her own way, in her own passions, in her own dreams. But she can be and fit into any shoes she wants to fit into without having to act like a man. And I'm so happy we have a very nice mix, 2 men versus 3 women, so we're definitely winning, right? All right, cool. So I'll start this session with my own experience as a woman working in the creative industry. This session is going to touch on 3 topics that are very passionate to me. 1 is the creative industry, 2 is women empowerment, and 3 is breaking that barrier of what has been set for women, what women can do and cannot do. So I was raised with 3 women as my sisters and a mother with 2 brothers. So you can say I came from a feminist household. The boys used to sweep and cook. The women used to, okay, we didn't used to wash cars, but yes, we were doing everything. We were all children. There was no special individual. There was no special anything. And I think for my formative years, something that was very important that was put in my mind is you and your brothers are pretty much the same. So you can study medicine or you can study engineering. Unfortunately, my parents wanted me to study either of the 2, but eventually I became a writer, so awkward. But it was really great to find that I could do anything I wanted to do. And I think that transcended and carried me on into even my professional life. So I work with a talented group of women. I work with an amazing boss who is a woman. And through the Bella Naija platforms, I'm very excited that we have numerous programs and projects and campaigns which I lead that focus on empowering women. One of which is our Women's Month, which is currently ongoing, where we just spent 4 whole weeks in March celebrating women. So that's my story. And I want to hear from the other speakers as well, how women have played in their growth, in their careers, just anything impactful that you can share. And it doesn't even have to be someone doing something to you. It could be you empowering someone else. Joko Tari.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here, Kola. I mean, this is such a brilliant initiative. And I'll just jump right into your question. And, you know, while you were narrating your experience growing up and where you work, and especially your question now, it almost seems like you just summarized, because I studied microbiology, and in my final year in uni, I discovered my passion for photography, and I pursued it. First person I called, my sister. Light bulb moment, I love photography. What do I do? She connected me. Anyway, this business starts, and before I got on this panel, I was still telling someone that every time when I take stock of what this journey has been like, I always see women helping me, connecting me with people, with resources, with opportunities. And if I look at the bulk of the clients that I photograph, they're women, because women are the marketplace, literally. They're the ones who make the decisions for the families, for their husbands, you know, when it comes to photography-related issues.
Well, I'm looking of just industry. It means in spite of those, they succeeded in spite of the setbacks. You know, related into the photography, if you look around the world. But if you ask me to advise, I would say 1.
I'd like to come to you really quickly. Okay, I like that this is a very diverse session. So we have the core people in photography and we have film as well. About 37% of women in the film industry it's the only percentage of women that get key speaking role is presented to the public. And I know there have been a lot, it's a very controversial topic.
Because they know, and this is not to knock men, we need to unwarp our minds with regards to how, I feel like sometimes as men, I don't know if it's intimidation, I don't know if it is fear, I don't know if it's our ego, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to speak Yoruba now. When we see a woman in power, a man, like, you sneak at the woman, you feel like, no, my actresses, my female producers, and some of us men, we don't really do, we just hustle, maybe we just hustle with no. And
Thank you so much. Please, a round of applause for our speakers. Okay, Bukola, I'll come to you since Tokwe touched on leadership and now women in the creative sector and women at leadership roles in the creation for women who are at the helm of major organizations. Sometimes we hear, it's a woman driver. Oh yeah, she's going to cut into your lane or something. Very arrogant. Are those perceptions for real, or are these just stereotypes that are forced on women?
There are always going to be perceptions. There's always going to be stereotypes. As long as you're a man and you're a woman, there will always be stereotypes. And the problem with labels is that you make it mean how you project that thing to others, and that's how other people would also see you. I find it always interesting when we have this conversation around gender, that it always stems from women. But you find that when we talk of women in leadership, but there's of the creative industry, and I think the conversation really should generally be about how women are perceived, how women are received, how women are projected on, right? Whether you're in leadership, it's always very interesting to me because the conversation shouldn't really just be about how do we treat women. It is important, that's for sure. Household, everybody was the same. Everybody was treated the same way and received the same way. So if the woman is going to do chores, the man too must go and do chores, right? So I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that generally we're not going to have the same interests, and generally we're not going to have the same outcome. But what we should be pushing forward, what we should be put against, is just the discrimination. Because you have the ability, and what I can do should be based about, the opportunities that I'm giving should be based about, or based on the merit of my ability, on the merit of my competence, regardless of whether I'm a man or a woman. So I think that's the conversation we should be pushing. And to be honest with you, I don't think that our women, and I'm not talking about the ones who are working hard, I don't think that our women are helping their image. You're talking about reputational bias. Well, they're feeding it. They're feeding the bias constantly. In the music videos, they're feeding it. In the films, they're feeding it. They're feeding that bias. So how can the women themselves help themselves to prepare or repair their reputation so that the men can also begin to see them in a better light? How can you make sure that you're not taking the roles that make you seem like you're easy? How can you be in a position where when you go for audition? Wow.
Thank you, Bukola. I want to pull on a few things that have been said across all the speakers. Virginal, modest roles.
Someone has to build the cards. I mean, someone has to play the
That's
role.
not even what I'm saying, right? That's not even what I'm saying. I'm talking about beyond the conduct of the role that you play, all right? And I'm going to come to you, storytellers. Beyond the conduct of the role that you play, there's also the conduct that is off-screen. There's the conduct off-screen I'm talking about. It's a conduct before you get in front of the camera that I'm talking about. That is the one that needs to change. That is the one that needs to be elevated. And until that is elevated, the story will not change. Producers will take advantage of what wants to be taken advantage of. At some point, earlier on in my career, I've worked in some of these, what you call these things now, reality shows, Nigerian Idol and the rest of them, right? And auditions. It's not the person auditioning them that they are cutting eye for. It is the runners that they think will get them in front of the auditioner that they're sleeping with. I kid you not. I kid you not. If you go to their rooms, those runners, they are the ogas. What I'm saying is, it's about the conduct before you even get the role. Because it is that continuation of that, that conduct that you think, and it's, the unfortunate thing is that
Probably his wife is talking to one bobo and he goes berserk. Like, why would the wife do that? But he thinks that he's justified to constantly cheat. But the expectation he has of his wife is maybe to be a saint or to be some Jesus. And I feel like it's disproportionate and unfair to the woman.
I hear you. I don't know how that relates to this particular conversation,
No,
but I hear you.
It's
and the expectation. So I want to keep within this conversation, right? Because when you say that society, the expectation society has of women, is society pushing women to go and sleep with their producers and directors? No.
Of course not. But
So
I'm saying
I'm
that
just keeping it within the context of this conversation. However, society, of course, we would say is patriarchal, right? We would say that there's an imbalance. I don't know what the word is. There's an imbalance in how men generally expect women to behave, to behave towards them and all that. There definitely is. And I'm not sure that it's going to change drastically anytime soon. That's why these conversations are, you will have these conversations around, women empowerment and feminism and all that. That is what has brought up this whole rise of feminism and all that crap, if you like me to use that word. Right? But I think the fundamental thing is that for us to accept that we are different and for us to key into our individual strengths, I think that is the key. To embrace our differences and not see them as weaknesses,
Beautiful.
but as strengths.
Now, the thing is this. I agree with both of you. I don't know if you get what I mean. Then it behoves me. I don't know if you get what I mean. Then it behoves me to make good use of that unfair advantage. Maybe I'm eloquent. I got it from my parents and from the books I read. And you stutter. And there's a job that requires you not just to photograph, but also to present on TV. Then I have an undue advantage over you that stutters. Now, being a woman gives you certain advantages.
Yep.
Do not try to be like a man. Find your strength in being a woman and use it. I remember we wanted to have an exhibition. We have a group then, a long time ago, called Depth of Field. Myself, Uche, Iroha, T.Y. Bello, and Amaiza. Then we were just 4. And we said, we are going to go into Lagos and do Lagos inside. So we are going to show these foreigners that we know Lagos, and we are going to show the real Lagos because we live here. So I decided to shoot inside the mall. Okay, not outside it. And I had to go a whole day to do a recce and get permission from a particular Molue driver in order to bring out my camera. T.Y. Bello went to Ojo Elegba bus stop and did portraits of area boys smoking Igbo. I cannot try that thing. Mind you, that was when Ojo Elegba was Ojo Elegba. I don't know if you get what I mean. Ojo Elegba is saying now. T.Y. will smile at them and they say, take the photo. Fine girl. I don't know if you understand. Now it's nothing. It's who she is. She's being feminine. She's using her power. There's nothing wrong with it. Now there will always be bad people. There are bad men that cheat, that take advantage of girls because they are men. There are bad girls that entice men to get what they want. And they give both men and women a bad reputation. Like what she said, we are pushing for equal opportunities for both men, and we should not expect equal outcome because they are different. You say, oh, I'm giving Kelechi equal opportunity. Take camera, go under Ojelegba Bridge and shoot area boys. I'll come out with a broken head. Equal opportunity. TY goes there and she gets the most amazing pictures with smiles. It's not an equal outcome. I don't know if you get what I mean. Give a girl the 200 mm 2.0 lens that is massive without a monopod to be getting a few photographs of this event. You won't get too many photos. Her back will start paining her. Carrying that, she can't even, to carry that camera is like carrying a dumbbell. You understand? Take a guy who's been working out, he'll probably hold it for about 2 hours before he gives up. They all have their differences,
Right.
you know? And, but again, when we look at culture, it's a culture that gives men a little advantage. In those days, in the days of hunter-gathering, physical strength was everything. But times have changed. Right now, it's what is inside your head. And photography itself is all about the photographic eye. And that advantage really doesn't exist that much. It goes up and down based on your temperament as a human being. And your gender contributes in a lot of ways, even to certain temperaments that you have. You know? And I say, what we need to do is to provide equal, and yes, those stereotypes will have to work on. Both for men and women. It's
A nail on the head with different ways and different scenarios which we cannot. We are trained and raised as women. You know, if you have if a man and a woman, if you catch a man and a woman having a conversation about cooking, not trained chefs, the conversation, it can get very heated because the woman's like, you know what, I've been raised like this from birth and I know how to do da. And then the man's like, yeah, but I too. So in terms of that mentorship, I feel like we as women have that responsibility to also impact values to other women. So you've risen to a certain level. You've gotten to a level of success. How are you training or building up other women to also own their own narrative in a way that is positive for the whole ecosystem?
All right. Thank you so much. So if there's anything that I'm very clear about and I'm very vocal about is the challenges that women tend to face in business. While you might have the same opportunity, the same gear, the same market available to you as both male and female, in this case, I'll be focusing on photographers, right? But there comes a point in your life, and that point is where you start a family, that things would dip. And I personally went through it. It takes a lot of resilience to come back into the industry and thrive. And this is not even just for photography alone.
Yeah.
It cuts across. I had my daughter, and for 6 months, I was out. When I came back, everything was like, it was very strange to me. I felt like an alien. But I took my lessons from there. For me, I saw it as a season. And what I did with that season was, I immersed myself in learning. I learned like I had never done before. Such that by the time I was done with my son, I came back with so much fire, so much force, that everyone keeps asking me, didn't you just have a baby? In fact, when I had him, I was due to come back like maybe 3 months after. I changed my ticket back. I was in Lagos, he was 6 weeks. 2 days after that, I was out a pre-wedding shoot. Throughout my pregnancy period, I was learning. So these are stories that I personally share. They are relatable. I don't want people to say, oh, I don't want you to glamorize it. You know, say it as it is, so that it's easy. It's easy to follow, you know. And this, at that stage where women start families, is at the point where a lot of vibrant female photographers, you know, go down or slow down or sometimes even fade out. Now, with more female photographers going into baby photography, family photography, but I mean, I love children, but I don't like to do newborn photography. I prefer to photograph women. So I'm not going to let that be a limitation around. Make sure that you, and when you are at war, you need to be ready to fight and push through, which is challenges. So what are to family life and the likes? And we think we can have many, many more
Applause for her. Bukola, I'd like to come to you on an industry level. The last panel, they were speaking about putting a structure. When you start, men, there's already that tipping scale for us. And we see that even in this room here, I know that we have so many photographers, so many people in the creative industry, but I think I can pretty much count how many women. Yes, so I can also be on that table. I can make my mark, even if I'm not a photographer holding the camera or a creative doing the copywriting, etc., but from that leadership level.
A helping hand shouldn't also be come up, because at the end of the day, it might be lonely at the top, but the balance can be, it can be shared if there's a bit more balance at the top, So I think that's what I would say on that.
Thank you. And just to sort of round up, because I can see you, Motunde.
Thank you.
I'm all for he for she, and I love that the two men on our panel are very vocal about that. So, Tokwe, I want to ask you, what are some biases or imbalances that in the film industry that you're done with? You don't want to see this going forward. You don't want to hear people this or like this. What are some of these biases that you've seen? It could be one. It could be more than
I think we've discussed one. I guess some of it, yes. Some people bring it to themselves, but it's not holistic. It's not everybody. I know many people, of course, you don't know people into like what they think in depth, but just generally speaking, it's not as holistic as it seems to appear. Nah, I disagree. You hear stuff like, oh, I can't marry an actress, I can't. No, I will marry them and you should marry them. They are awesome ones there. So if you meet an actress, marry her. Don't get back way. But point is, let's not just generalize, no. And I think I just want to end on this note, right? Diversity in this context is not a zero-sum game. It's a win-win for everybody. Yeah. So we should all embrace it.
Awesome.
And there was something you said in terms of, have you ever carried such and such lens and how heavy it is?
Somebody is lazy. No, we don't want them, boy or girl. It's as simple as that. If you're hardworking, you're focused, why not? You understand? And I hope that's the same with everybody. It's not always easy. Talking about what they are saying, we all have those biases. When you see a man pulling up in a Rolls Royce, you'll be like, this guy has worked hard for his money. And then you see a girl pulling up in a red Range Rover, because she's young, you'll be like, I don't want to say anything, no. Say, wow, man, what does this girl do? Let's find out. Maybe she can inspire us, to be as, as hardworking. It is, Chimamanda said it, they want you to be successful, but don't be too successful. If you're making a lot of money, don't show it so that you will get a husband. Society has some of those biases that also plays on the mental health of women. I do think we need to sort of, if we think deeply, we'll understand that we are all in that kind of, psychological quack where it's been implanted into our heads. That, subconsciously, so if we can take care of those biases, it will encourage women, because a lot of times what motivates people to work hard is to be able to show.
Thank you very much.
Big round of applause for our panel.
You have one question? Yeah, we have one question here, but please let's give.
As a 19-year-old, very passionate photographer.
All right, so what I would say is that in life there are seasons. What takes you from year 1 to year 3 is not the same knowledge that's going to take you from year 3 to 6. So as you arrive at each stage, figure out what you need, and seek that knowledge to fill the gap. Even though you're running a creative business, you need to know how to run a proper business. So if you do not know how to do it yourself, you hire consultants. Mind you, the consultant is actually not going to give you all the answers.
Yeah.
Let me chip that in right there. You now need to take what they've told you, what you are experiencing, then fill in the gap. So the work is heavily placed on you, but you have to learn per time. There's no end to learning, and that's where I'll keep it at.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So basically, passion is good. Someone has something to say. Okay, please go ahead. Thank you. No?
Oh, right, okay. Okay, so I feel like there are different parts, or there are different ways to skin a horse. So at a point, I studied mass communication as my first degree. I wanted to study theater, but they didn't allow me. And I wanted to do a master's abroad at some point, in acting and whatnot, but I couldn't afford it. So what did I do? I went on YouTube. I read all the books. I watched all the movies. I learned all the monologues. If there's a free seminar somewhere, I'm there. There's a symposium somewhere, I'm there. So, if you can't afford to go to school, if you can afford to go to school, get a PhD, by all means, I support that. But if you can't do that, this alternative means to learn is something to take up. And yeah.
Thank you so much. And just to round up the conversation, I know we've spoken at length about gender imbalances, disparities between men and women in the creative industry. I'd like to say to all my wonderful, beautiful women, the first step is to always believe in yourself and to not take the side of the victim as a woman. So whether you are in a creative space or you are in a male-dominated industry, never ever take the side of the victim. Yes, there are imbalances. Yes, there are stereotypes that we have to break out of, but never ever take the side of the victim. You're unique, and always be proud of your uniqueness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to add to that, passion is good, but at the same time, yeah. Thank you so much. Please a round of applause for our speakers. Thank you so much. Please a round of applause for our speakers and the moderator. Please, can we have a group photograph? Thank you so much. Thank you, Tokwe, Mr. Kelechi, Bukola. Yeah.